In the last section, we were able to successfully run our tests on Travis CI. So now in theory, our application would be ready to be deployed to some outside hosting provider, such as AWS or Windows Azure or DigitalOcean, whatever it might be. Now in our case, we're going to set up some automatic deployment over to AWS. This is a point at which I'm hoping you've got a AWS account already created. Again, recall that in order to sign up for AWS, you do need to have a credit card. You won't be billed anything, but you do have to enter some credit card details. Now, if you don't have a credit card, that's totally fine. You can always follow along, just you won't go through the AWS part in particular. So let's get to it. The first thing that we're going to do is to log on to AWS and create a new application that is going to be used as the target for our deployment. So I'm going to open up a new browser tab and I'll navigate to aws.amazon.com. And then once here, I'll sign in by going up to my account and opening up the AWS Management Console. I'll then sign in, and then I get redirected to the AWS dashboard. And at this point, I'm going to scroll in a pretty good amount just so you can see everything a-okay. Now to deploy our project, we're going to be making use of Elastic Beanstalk, which you can find by searching for Elastic Beanstalk like so. Elastic Beanstalk, I'm going to tell you right now, by far easiest way to get started with production Docker instances. Now to be clear, Elastic Beanstalk is most appropriate when you're running exactly one container at a time. We can start up multiple copies of the same container, but at the end of the day, easiest way to run one single container. I'm going to click on this search result, and then we get prompted with the EBS, or the Elastic Beanstalk dashboard. Now you'll notice that I've already got an application on here. We can just totally ignore that. That's just a tiny little personal project that I'm working on for right now. On the top right hand side, I'm going to find the link to create a new application, and I'll click on it. We then get prompted for an application name. Now you can use Docker React. Unfortunately, if I use Docker React, I already have a project called Docker React, so I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to call this simply Docker. You can call it Docker, Docker React, whatever you want it to be. And then we'll click on Create. Now when we create the application, that just kind of creates a workspace of sorts. To actually have some target that we can deploy to, we have to create something called an environment. And as you can see right here, we are being prompted to create one right away. So we'll click on the Create One Now link. And then we get prompted for a couple of different inputs here. You'll see that we are being asked if we are making a web server or worker environment. In our case, we are going to be creating a website, so we're going to leave web server environment selected. I'll then click Select on the bottom right. We then get prompted with a couple other questions here. The only thing that we have to enter in is, if you scroll down, you'll find base configuration. Under platform, we're going to select Docker. We'll then scroll down. We can leave sample application selected for right now. That's totally fine. And then we'll click on Create Environment. So this is going to set up a bunch of infrastructure on your AWS account. Don't worry, it can all be closed down very, very easily with just one or two clicks. And we're definitely going to go through that process at the end of all this deployment stuff. That's actually something worth talking about for just a little bit. If you leave all these instances up that we're going to create, you will eventually be billed some amount of money for them. Now the good news is that if you leave them running, it's going to be a rather small amount of money, particularly if your AWS account is still under the free tier provision. However, again, I don't want you to be billed for anything, so remember, if you drop out of this section halfway through, please do skip towards the end, where we'll walk through the process of shutting down this application so that you will not be billed. Okay, so as you can see, this is going to go through a little bit of setup for us. We're going to let this just do its thing for right now because it is going to take a good number of minutes. So let's take a quick break and we'll rejoin in just a moment.